Hello everybody, this is Sarah. Welcome back to PMO Refuge. The beginning of this channel, I shared my personal PMO story. This video is going to be the last in this sequence. Now, I do have a structure going forward, but if you're not new to this channel, you'll know that I've numbered all the videos that I've made so far and had a few lectures in between. This is going to be pretty much the last of this series. And the reason why is because I want you to follow the course of these videos so far. So if you're new to the channel and this is your first video, I highly encourage you to go back and watch that very first video and go all the way through. There's a reason to this madness as well, because you have to have some kind of structure to overcome this addiction, this sex addiction. And the beginning part is the basics. We talk about what a lot of terms mean, a lot of what kind of the introductory subjects mean of like masturbation, pornography, edging, and so forth. Then we get into a little bit deeper of subjects. We start talking about how PMO affects the way you view relationships, how it affects the way you view the future, and so forth. And then we go almost into the trenches in this section that I'm concluding right now, where we talk about how you can change your future, how you can change the way your relationships work. You can even hopefully heal if you have a relationship currently and move on from that. So, why did I bring up my very first video? Well, a little bit into my backstory. As you know, I battled PMO for 20 years. I got married without telling my wife about my addiction. And sadly, my PMO addiction brought about the end of my marriage. Now, before it ended, I did come forward and I had to tell my wife, then I had to tell my family, some friends, and religious leaders, because I'm a religious person, about my addiction. It was embarrassing. It was highly embarrassing. I had to get very detail-oriented because they had to find out, what was going on. And then later, when I even went and saw therapists, until I talked to the one that really helped me overcome it, because he struggled with PMO addiction himself, again, it was embarrassing. I had to reveal very intimate things that I had never revealed to anyone. In fact, it's almost as if this was the darkest parts of myself now that I was telling almost everybody that I knew that was close to me. Now, if you were to ask me, do I regret that? My answer would be no. And I'm going to be very, very point blank with you and just say this. If you are struggling with PMO and you're battling guilt, you're lying about it, there is no other way around it. You have to come forward and tell people about this addiction. Now, of course, are you going to run around, with a megaphone and start yelling it to every single person that you know? No, you're not going to do that. You may even want to at least be a little discreet about what friends you tell, right? Because you really want to open up to people who are really going to help you. And we're going to today talk about what it means to face responsibility for what you have done. And I'm going to split that section up into groups, right? Because, of course, with PMO, we have different audience, right? We have our young ones, our teenagers, right, who are maybe facing the problem and are kind of finally waking up to why that's an issue in the first place. We have some people in their 20s, where they've let some time pass by and they recognize that it is wrong, but, they just don't have the conviction or the way to go about telling people. And then there are those, I'm going to say late 20s plus, the older crowd. Now, let's break that off bit by bit. right? So let's say you're a young one listening to this video. You're a teenager, or maybe even going through adolescence. Why is it important for you to tell a parent or a guardian about this addiction? Why not just keep it a secret? Why not just see it as a part of growing up, right? Because I've heard all of it. If anything, sometimes the world thinks it's laughable for ones to deal with this addiction. And the reason why you need to tell is, yes, granted, I know where people are coming from when they describe and they say, well, this is just part of adolescence. This is just part of growing up. Yes, that is true. Hormones start to grow and at a rapid pace. Sexual urges first started to becoming strong, and you're starting to kind of see the appeal of the opposite sex, right? That's the natural progression of just being a person, being a human being. That's not the issue that we're fighting with, because one thing that kind of drives me crazy is I read on Reddit, especially under NoFap, and I see a lot of young ones saying like, oh, is this normal? Is this, so on and so forth. And people just it's kind of funny, but they kind of say like it's almost like they say all sexual urges are wrong, or I can't tell you, out of all the people that I've personally reached out to on Reddit, one of the first questions is almost asking like, is it normal? Or when are these sexual urges going to go away? And I almost laugh at it because I'm like, it's never going to go away. Like there are old men who still crave sex, and there are old men who have a healthy relationship and they have sexual urges. Why? Because that's part of being a human being. That's what human males do, right? That's how our bodies go about things. And that's not the issue. That's not the problem with PMO. That's not where it comes up. Because the real problem, the number one problem, if you were to break it up, I think it almost goes in order, is the pornography. That is the number one problem. It is mentally and psychologically damaging to the human brain. There are tons of research on it. I don't even need to go into it right now. Go ahead and Google literally that exact phrase. Psychological mental damages pornography, and see what comes up. The research is there. Now, the second problem is excessive self-pleasure, right? Because, again, listen to my story, but I kind of had a weird situation where I was involved in self-pleasure first, and then pornography came much, much, much later. But the problem with me was I was using self-pleasure to deal with anxiety, to deal with depression, to deal with boredom. And at my worst, I was relapsing 3 to 4 times a day back then. It was crazy. It was just absolutely crazy, the amount of time and attention I gave that. And you bet it affected me psychologically. And so if you're a young one, you need to open up and you need to share your experience with that parent or that guardian, right? Because going to your friends is not really going to help. Going online, the internet, is not going to help. Not the type of help that you need, right? So it's only going to benefit you, and of course you want to share it with somebody that loves you and cares about you. And it is going to be much faster overcoming this addiction rather than trying to do it by yourself. Again, trust me, I've been there firsthand. Now, how about those who fall into the second category? The ones in their 20s now, let's say. Well, it's still important for you to come to somebody and tell your addiction. Now, again, it could be a parent or a guardian. It could be, somebody, an older one that you trust, maybe, right? Or it could be somebody who is in a mental health capacity. But, again, The thinking may be, well, why can't I just go online? That seems to be the number one place that people turn to when they have an addiction. And don't get me wrong, finding a crowd to kind of help support you past it, there's nothing wrong with that aspect. The problem, though, is your progress, number one, is going to be severely delayed. Because the benefits of coming to a person, an actual living person sitting right in front of you, is the accountability. Yes, there is some accountability online, but like, let's face it, everybody lies online, right? And it's much easier to lie online because you're not able to see the person that's supposed to be helping you. So again, the growth is so severely delayed when you just try to do things online. And number two, this is a tough one as well. Watching these videos, even watching my videos here online on YouTube, I commend you for it. You are doing something that, people who have this addiction will not even, the majority of them will never even bother doing, and that's seeking help. And I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad you're watching these videos. But if I'm real with you, and this is the reason why I end this series like this, is I want you to get to a point where you don't need these videos anymore. Because videos, again, and talking to people online all have one thing in common, and that's eventually there's only so far that you can go with just using these things. Now, is this the case with everybody? No. There are some people where if they catch the right motivation, they are able to, like, let's say, lose a bunch of weight they've wanted to lose or overcome an addiction. They're just that type of person. But I would say the majority of the time, we need actual help. We need somebody to actually be checking in on us and helping us be accountable for what we're trying to do. And like I said, that using my own example, I watched videos on it for years. I didn't go so far as to talking online with people about my addiction, trying to do it that way, but that's just kind of because of the time period I grew up in. But I would watch videos, I would try to learn as much as I could online. And then, I just realized that, like, I need somebody to actually help me through this. I can't do this by myself. And that kind of leads me perfectly to the last group of people that I mentioned. And that's the older crowd. I would say late 20s above, anybody above that age range. And I think this is the number one thing that this crowd needs to know, is that humility. Realizing, like, you cannot defeat this thing by yourself. And the actual proof of why I can say that is your own example, ironically. If you are in your 30s, more than likely you have been battling this for 20 years plus. If you're being fully transparent and honest with yourself, do you really foresee a great amount of progress being made? Because if that was possible, you would have already been there. You would have already beat this addiction. But the fact that you're still here, still battling it, still doing the same things day in, day out, only shows that, sad to say, you're not able to beat this by yourself. And I know that sounds bad, right? Because you want to believe that you can do it. But honestly, looking at my own example, that was almost, try to look at it this way, it was almost a relief for me, to kind of see, like, okay, I'm not crazy. I just can't defeat this thing by myself. I need help. I need tools to help me to overcome this addiction. And then, eventually you'll be able to be strong enough and be able to defeat this addiction by yourself. But especially in the beginning, you are not going to be able to, especially if you fall into this age bracket. Now, coming clean, coming out in the open to people about your addiction is the biggest step, but it is not the only one when it comes to facing responsibility. Number two, another thing you need to realize, and this might take time, you know, I've come to learn through my own example that PMO made me extremely selfish, and I didn't see how my actions affected others. But you need to really take a look at taking accountability for your own self, and what you have done. And let me give you some examples of what that could mean, right? A lot of times those who get involved with PMO have found that their life does not turn out the way that they want. And I look at my own example. I look at, hundreds and thousands of examples on Reddit. And the sad thing is we all kind of have the same backstory going on. In addition to our PMO addiction, a lot of times, a lot of us, are at a dead-end job, at a dead-end situation. Maybe you had a relationship, but it's more than likely it's a failed relationship or many failed relationships, or just no relationships at all. You're not happy with yourself. You're not happy with your life. And honestly, PMO is the cause of that. It's the root cause of it. So what you can do is start to reflect on how it has affected your life, because if you're in that situation, more than likely your family notices it, right? They know that like you're not in a good spot where you want to be in life. So then you can start seeing, well, how has my behavior affected my family? How has my behavior affected my friends? Maybe you realize like I don't have any friends. Maybe you realize I only have a few friends and that's it. And for those who maybe you had a lot of friends, maybe now you realize, man, I feel like I just used people. I just used them. Or I don't have a lot of deep friendships because, again, I'm afraid to open up to people. I'm speaking from firsthand experience here. I know what it's like. And now I've come to see how it's affected my life. If you found yourself in that position that I illustrated with earlier, with maybe there's no career that you have, well, now you see like, well, where am I at financially? Am I at a dead-end job and a dead-end career? Do I not have any like real opportunities to make money? Well, start taking stock of that and start seeing ways that you can change it, because it is possible to change it. I'm going to mention some things to look at the end of this video that I really think that you guys are going to help with. It's really going to help you out if you're in that spot. Now, the last one, and this is a big one, and it ties a little bit into the video that I've shared in the past, but facing responsibility for if you have a relationship. Let me re-emphasize this point again, because I mentioned this before. But there is no guarantees that your relationship will survive by coming out into the open. I thought that it would myself. I thought it would fix everything. But what I've come to realize now is everybody has their own choice. Right? So sad to say your partner might not decide to stay with you if you come clean about everything that you've done. And you just have to accept that. You just have to accept it. But you owe them that truth. You owe them to tell them what's going on. Now, if you have somebody who is willing to work with you, be open and honest with them. Make sacrifices for them. That's a big one, because a lot of times those who struggle with PMO almost still try to carry on their lives like they always have been. And that's the addiction speaking. You need to start making sacrifices. Throw away the computer. Throw away the phone. Put the phone out in the open. Let your significant other browse your phone at the end of every single day and see what you've been doing. It's a sacrifice, yes. You're sacrificing privacy, pride, all of that. But again, Is that person worth doing all those things? Or is the addiction more important to you than that relationship? I'll be blunt with you there. Now, one last point before I kind of get to resources that you can further check out here. One last point is a little bit into what I just mentioned about relationships, but this can apply to those of you who are single as well. And that is your motive for making this change. Because honestly, like I just mentioned, there is no guarantees that you will have, I wouldn't say a happy ending. I would say there's no guarantees that things will go great for you right away. Because maybe you'll be looked at differently, by your friends and family. Maybe they'll cut ties with you. Maybe there will be a lot of shame that you'll have. Maybe you'll lose a relationship. I experienced all of those things, and more than likely, you will as well. And I made that mistake. Like I just mentioned, I made the mistake I thought that coming clean and doing all of this was almost going to guarantee that I would keep my relationship. But I was sadly and sorely mistaken. And it's the same for you. You have to realize that coming clean and taking responsibility, that does not guarantee that things are just automatically going to get good. Or it may take some time for you to start reaping benefits. That's why you have to ask yourself, what are my motives for quitting PMO? Is it just for things to quote unquote get better? Or are you doing it because simply it's the right thing to do? Because simply you are taking responsibility now as a man, and you will just do it because, again, it's the right thing to do. I really hope you all have enjoyed this series, and some resources I would love for you to check out. You can, number one, continue to watch this channel, but I'm going to get into that in a little bit about what the future of this channel holds. But one person I would love for you all to check out is Roman Mirnov. And sad to say, he used to have a YouTube channel, but YouTube actually copy-struck him off of the platform completely. I thought it was utterly ridiculous. But he does have a website. That's Roman, R-O-M-A-N, Mirnov, M-I-R-O-N-O-V. And he is a porn detox coach. He was my personal coach, and you will never be disappointed checking out his work. He completely changed my life for the better. So I recommend watching his videos on his website. He does have some YouTube videos, but it's not his personal channel anymore. So, I kind of hate that, but it is what it is. But I highly recommend checking him out. There are also, I mentioned about if you're feeling stuck in your life or financially. I heavily implore you to watch the video and watch, I think, even more of his videos as well. But watch his video, What Your Father Should Have Taught You, by Kevin Samuels. Now, I know he's kind of a controversial figure, but he gives so much good advice in that video about your finances and about your work that are very practical, because you can look up hundreds and thousands of videos on YouTube or online, but there's so many get-rich-quick schemes. For example, one thing that he said that really changed my life is if you are looking to kind of jumpstart your career, start within your own company that you're working at first. Go to the HR rep, go to your boss, and tell them that, like, hey, I'm trying to do something with my life. What can I do that's different here? Or go to corporate, go straight to corporate and say, hey, I'd love a corporate job. I already work for this company. And then if none of that works out, you don't have to leave your field, stay within your field, but keep looking up. And I thought that was just so simple and so practical. I did it right away. And it helped me tremendously change my life and my career around. So those are just two things. Now, the third thing is what I mentioned earlier, this channel. Yes, this is going to conclude this series that I'm doing. What I'm going to do after this is I'm going to, from time to time, kind of gather together things that I saw on the NoFap Reddit, situations that I read about. And I'm going to make a video. And the purpose of it is to hopefully attract more and more of you to watch these series of videos. However, on each of those videos, I'm always going to share to watch these first sets of videos, numbers 1 through this third lecture that I'm now going to make in this video right now. Because, again, the whole purpose of this is to gain enough knowledge for you to go out there and to change your life. You can always feel free to rewatch these videos as well, but that's the point of these videos. And like I said, the ultimate point is I no longer want you to watch these videos ever again. I want you to get completely free of them. But this is Sarah signing off on this course, and I will see you all soon.